Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So if you saw the video yesterday, you guys know that this week is all about goal planning for 2020. So the first video in this week-long series was a review of this Reflect and Recharge notebook. And today is going to be my 2019 recap. So I have a couple of things out here to kind of help me work on this and show you guys how I actually am going about planning my goals for 2020. So the first part is going to be what I actually did in the Reflect and Recharge workbook for the 2019 review, and also taking a look at some of my mind maps from this year to see how close I got to accomplishing the majority of my goals. So let's dive right in. So as you guys saw in this Reflect and Recharge workbook, which if you are like, hey, why does it look different? I actually filmed the Reflect and Recharge workbook review with the copy that I actually got from Claire because I received it before the real thing came out for you guys. And once she actually launched the workbook, I actually went ahead and I printed out my own version and bound it myself because I wanted to have a smaller version that was in a workbook format like this that I could then archive with my PROJOs from this year. So that's why this looks a little bit different, but the content is all the same. So let's take a peek. So I went ahead and filled out, just in here I have from January 2019 to December 2019, and I just wrote in that I worked on filling this out. I actually wrote the 5th of November, but I ended up finishing it up today. I'm actually filming this on November 10th. I think it's the 10th. So I'm finishing this about a month and a half before the end of the year, but honestly, in order to make sure that I'm ready for my 2020 goals, I don't like to leave my reflection time until, December 28th or whatever. I like to do it a little bit early in November. So this is actually how I would be planning this even if I weren't filming it for you guys. So I figure this is pretty true to life. So just as kind of a disclaimer, this is all my personal information. I wanted to give you guys a look at how I actually filled it out because I thought it might be helpful for some people to see kind of a real life example. But again, this is all my personal information that I am choosing to share with you guys. So please be kind. Also, there might be some things that I skip. I might not show you absolutely everything in here, but I will show you as much as I can. So let's take a peek. So the first part is to do the review of your year. So I actually sat down with my PROJOs and filled in the different sections. So as you can see, I've got everything up through a couple things in November and I don't have December yet, so I will have to fill those in. And in terms of how I filled this out, I found that for a lot of months, my accomplishments and highlights honestly overlapped a fair amount. I did have, for example, when I moved, I was able to kind of split that up. So for example, I moved, but then I organized my move really well was the accomplishment kind of associated with that highlight. I also had a really hard time coming up with certain challenges. Honestly, if you can see, it's admin most of the time. I had a couple of other little things, but it was honestly getting admin stuff done has been the hardest thing for me to do. It's still something I really struggle with. Like that was my big challenge of 2019, I think. So I had a lot of fun going back through my old PROJOs. I would kind of glance at my monthly log, but I honestly relied most heavily on my monthly. Where are we? So I would look at my monthly log a little bit, but I relied most heavily on my monthly reflection to help me kind of remember what I did each month. So that is how I was able to fill this out. Then I picked my 3 biggest achievements and challenges, or accomplishments and challenges. After I filled this in, I realized that, for example, made real progress on my font. I actually ended up going back and I realized that getting started on my font was actually a challenge. It probably took me 4 or 5 months from actually buying the online course to actually starting on my font. And so I was like, okay, it's great that I made a lot of progress, but if we're being honest, it was a challenge to get started. So I do have that as kind of a duplication. I had a hard time coming up with accomplishments because I had a lot of little things that I was really proud of, but I tried to pick kind of big sort of one-off kinds of things that I felt really proud of. Challenges as well, I Went a little bit deeper in the challenges, and I honestly could probably go back and refill in a couple of things on that like month-to-month overview, but basically doing admin, getting started on my font, and setting up my shop. I had a hard time with filling out some of the different sections, but I think I did an okay job based on like what I had. So for example, with my trip to Korea, for example, I took a solo trip to Korea was my accomplishment. The skills I used was budgeting, project planning, organization, and basic Korean skills. And the skills I developed along the way was putting my Korean into practice. I relearned like how to travel by myself, and dedication and follow through for a goal, because I very easily could have pushed this off another year or two, and I'm really proud of myself that I actually didn't. Then for let's see, for example, getting started on my font, my obstacle or my fear and my obstacle was I made it seem like too big of a project, and so I just put it off. And what I learned is I really just need to take things step by step, hour by hour, and just like really break it down so that at any given time I only have a very small thing to do that seems much more attainable than like make a font kind of thing. So this was a really good exercise for me. Definitely something that I can still get better at doing, but it was good to make me think about the different things I did and like what it really took to do them. So I had fun with this one. Then I have my 3 happiest memories. I honestly had a really hard time at times coming up with just 3 or just one thing, as later on there's one thing I had to do for each like little category. And I sometimes had a really hard time with that. So my main things were, for example, I moved, and the reason it made me happy was it was my first real stable long-term feeling apartment, and it's my dream apartment, and it's in France. Like there was a lot going on there, but I came up with a couple of other happy memories there. And then after that, you break into the different areas of life. And so this is one where I might skip a couple of things, but I will say that some of the questions doing this again in the future, I would definitely recommend reading through all the questions first, because I honestly just kind of started filling stuff out with like gut reaction, and then would get down a little further and be like, oh wait, this should have gone down here kind of thing. But I will say like overall it did pretty well. I did pretty well with these. So for example, with career, I had a really hard time with some of the ones on here. So for example, what skill have you learned with confidence this year, so that it's so much easier to tackle a new unit as a whole rather than lesson by lesson, at least initially. So that was definitely something that changed the way that I do my curriculum planning, is really focus on like what's the full unit going to be, and then like doing the entire unit all at once, rather than like, oh man, I need to have a lesson for next week. Let's get that one lesson ready. So that definitely was a big thing. Is there something you failed at, but you're actually glad you did because the lesson learned in the process of failing was worth the shot? What did you learn? So this was when I was like, it wasn't a full fail, but there was a partial fail / work in progress in terms of discipline and classroom management. So I definitely am learning some different ways of dealing with issues, but I still struggle with it. So this was something that came up a lot last year. I had a couple, like really 2 main classes that I struggled with classroom management and really getting them to focus on doing work. And I feel like I have more strategies this year. So it wasn't a full fail. We still got work done, but it's also something that I think I really had to experience it in order to figure out ways to improve that this year, if that makes sense. Let's see. So what was the most pleasant surprise you experienced at work? Something I didn't expect. So I've been at the school now this is my 3rd full year, and I finally feel like I'm connecting more with colleagues outside of my the English teachers that I work with. And I feel like that's just been really a struggle for me, because I have not found it very easy to make friends with people in this area. Like most of my friends tend to be foreigners who kind of understand like the situation that I'm in and that kind of stuff. So I feel like I'm finally connecting with some of the French teachers, not French, like that's not the subject, but the teachers who are French who are at my school. So that was a really nice feeling. A new habit is don't put off grading, just get it done. It has really made such a difference in terms of reducing my stress by like really trying to stay on top of grading. And again, like career stuff, this was really hard because I tend to think of things in terms of the school year, whereas this is really like 2019. So there's maybe a little bit of overlap between like the school year last year and like this particular calendar year. But I think overall I answered the questions to the best of my ability. So Let's see. Overall, I was able to fill in all of the different pages. These are kind of personal, so I'm not necessarily going to go like super in depth into these. I really enjoyed for the finance one. So what did you change about your finances this year? So I really set concrete goals, and I finally did a yearly forecast. So I think that is going to like really help me in 2020 to stay on track and to like even save more money, use my money even more wisely than I have been. I've definitely made a lot of progress, but I think that these two things will really help me kind of continue getting better. What is your favorite purchase for this year? So I actually had two. So it was my sewing machine and my tickets to Korea. So because sewing has become very therapeutic for me, and I love wearing clothes that I've made, it just makes me feel really good. And also I am so glad that I bought those tickets to Korea and just like forced myself to go because I had an amazing time. What is one thing you didn't purchase this year even though you wanted to, and why did I decide not to get in the end? I had a hard time with this one, so probably some clothes in stores. I decided to make them instead was my answer. But because I've actually had a couple of things on my list of things to purchase, and I recently did an Amazon order to get a lot of them because they're things that have been like on the back of my mind on different lists that I've had for like anywhere between 6 months and a year, depending on the item. And I finally decided to get them. So I had a really hard time with this because I was like, oh, I actually bought them. But like, I'm sure there's other things I didn't buy. Like honestly, I don't go out to eat very much. I don't go out to cafes. So I don't spend a lot of money on that. I really haven't bought a lot of clothes. I bought a lot of skincare when I was in Korea, but like normally I don't buy a lot of stuff. So, you know, it's, yeah, you win some, you lose some, I guess. So last one on here was, what did you learn about budgeting and money management, generally speaking, this year? So I wrote that I'm getting a lot better, but I think I could make even better use of my money, as I mentioned just before, and I'm learning to think more long-term. This one has been a big struggle for me. I am really not that great with delayed gratification and like really thinking long-term, and I think I'm finally getting to a point where I'm starting to be able to think more long-term and put things off because it'll be better if I can do something in the future, or if I don't buy this thing now, then I can buy this thing later on, or if I don't do this now, then I can do this with my money later. And I think I'm finally getting to a point where I'm actually like able to do that more than I ever used to be able to do that. So the last thing is recreation, and I was so proud of myself for this one. I have two main vices that make me procrastinate. The first is random scrolling through Instagram and Facebook, and also watching random comedy videos on Facebook, and also reading random BuzzFeed articles, random language articles. Like those are my two biggest kind of scrolling things. And the other one is watching TV, but not watching TV in the sense that I'm putting on background noise while I'm sewing or while I'm knitting, just like watching TV and not doing anything else. So if that's the two main things that I kind of waste my time on, that's not too bad. I would like to definitely reduce doing those two things next year, and I would like to spend more time next year knitting and sewing, doing some social activities. I don't do a ton, and I don't think I need to do a ton, but maybe just a little bit more, and also reading more. I definitely have gotten into reading a lot of audiobooks because that's what I've been doing while I'm doing other things, so cooking or sewing or things that I can kind of do and not have to be fully attentive to. But I can definitely tell that I've gotten out of the habit of reading ebooks or physical books. And I think part of that is just stress and all the things that I have on my plate, that when I am sitting down to do something like that, I don't know, I tend to watch TV instead. So I really want to work on that because it's kind of a bummer. I would definitely want to fix that. So then the last thing in this little section is the year's best of, and this was another one where I had kind of a hard time picking just one thing, but I did my best. And I honestly, doing this made me realize this was a really, really good year. I'm really proud of myself for setting goals, for following through on a lot of them, and for trying some new things. I think 2019 was a really, really good year, and I'm super excited for 2020. Partially because 2019 was such a good year. I'm like, okay, what can I do next year that is gonna make life just that much better, kind of thing. So then we have the Wheel of Life, so you've got your little explanation here. I definitely went with the gut feeling sort of thing, and there's some that I mean, this is probably not the most accurate, but it was just kind of the gut feeling thing for what I did. So I ended up keeping the same categories that Claire gave in the example over here. So I have health, career, social, personal growth, recreation, physical environment, relationships, and finances. And I think I kind of committed to these for this year, but I think in the future I would put social and relationships in one, and I would split out recreation and like side hustle and hobbies, but this works well enough. So I will say most of them, I honestly am pretty pleased overall with how life is going. There are definitely some things that I want to work on, but there are a lot of things that I have made really good progress on this year, and I feel like really good about the work that I've already done. So that was really awesome. It was a really awesome feeling as I was filling this out to kind of realize that. Then I have my vision for the future. And again, there are certain things that I already felt really good about that I had some very concrete things that I was able to put in here. So for example, in terms of health, I'm really pleased overall with my health. I just really need to work on developing a solid attainable exercise routine. For example, career, I really want to continue working on streamlining my process so that I have more time. I have a couple projects that I want to take on at work. So having like the rest of that stuff kind of more squared away would really help me have more time to do that. I have my own personal projects that I want to keep working on, that kind of stuff. Physical environment, honestly, since moving, I'm so happy with my physical environment that the one thing I really want to do is put art on the walls. So I definitely have some really good ideas that when I do my 2020 pre-planning, I'm going to come back here and look and use some of this to help me set goals for next year. So this is the last page for the 2019 kind of reflection side of things. And I will say, overall, I think that 2019 was a really great year. It was the first year that I really focused on concrete goals, and I think that helped me so much just really stay focused during the year. So I wanted to go ahead and take a look first at my top 5 goals, see how things are going on there. So that is this page here. So in terms, I've got papers everywhere in all of my notebooks right now. That's kind of end of the year, that's what happens. But in terms of my top 5 goals, I definitely saved a lot of money. I did use some of that money for moving and for going to Korea, but I was really good about putting a decent percentage of my paycheck away each month. I think I could definitely do better on that, but I was really pleased. This was solid progress. Like, it was good. In terms of YouTube, I've already mentioned this, like I definitely am not going to hit the numbers goal, but I think that overall in terms of really making the most of my time and, you know, filming a bunch in advance and getting everything prepped and ready and working on my website and updating, like, I think overall this was a success, even just kind of aside from the numbers. So I'm really pleased with honestly how YouTube in general has been going this year. Moving, I moved. I've been in my apartment, honestly. It is November. I will have been in my apartment for a year in mid-February, which is crazy. Font, I've made a lot of progress. Because I'm filming this in mid-November, I can't tell you right yet if I've actually finished my goal of getting one font out in the world by the end of the year, but I'm definitely working at it. I will say, like, I've made a lot of progress on this particular goal, as you can see by stuff getting filled out. And Korea, I went to Korea. I had an amazing time, like definitely a success. So I will say out of my top 5 goals, I've kind of updated my little, oops, come on you. Cannot even open pages. There we go. So in terms of my top 5 goals, I have solidly finished 3. I'm getting to the point where I'm nearing finishing 4, and this one I'm considering a success, even though technically I didn't hit the number. So top 5, I say overall a success. In terms of my other goals for 2019, we'll take a look at this. So let's zoom in. Oops, we're gonna kind of do this half and half. There we go. So my overall 2019 goals, let's see. I moved. That one is fully done. In terms of YouTube, I definitely posted once a week. I did film some series. The summer hiatus sort of didn't happen because I ended up having too many videos. I did not do a live stream and I did not do premieres. So those were kind of the 2 things that I wanted to do that I didn't quite make happen. Font, I'm definitely getting there, not quite done. I'd say I'm like 75% done. Korea, I definitely finished, and I definitely want to keep working on studying Korean, but in terms of Korea, the trip, we're good. Let's see, so savings, The reducing groceries, that didn't happen. Still working on this. Started researching investing, have not quite finished. That's actually going to be a 2020 goal. Then my 2019-2020 like school prep, I actually did do syllabi. I've planned, I at least know what I'm gonna do even if I haven't fully planned the unit. I did my Prof BuJo. I started organizing papers and that kind of stuff. And for my for the class that I'm head teacher for, I did start working on that. So I would say that is overall pretty good. And we're actually gonna take a look because this first mind map, I really focused on my main 2019 goals. And by the time I got to Q4, I actually ended up having some more sort of generalized goals because I had finished a lot of my top 5 goals. So taking a look here, as I mentioned, I'm about 75% done with the font. Korea is definitely done. I'm making progress on this planning. Sewing, I've definitely done a lot of sewing this year, which is great. Yeah, these two, same ones as at the beginning of the year. So I am working on travel stuff, which I don't know how much I'll get done by the end of the year, but honestly, these are for February, April, and next summer, so I have some time still. Happy Mail, definitely haven't caught up on Happy Mail, oops, and did do doctor's appointments. So I will say overall, the fact that I actually sat down at the end of last year and made some pretty concrete goals for this year, and the process of going through the reflection part of this workbook, I definitely would say that 2019 was a good year. I think that I got a lot done. I think I've learned a lot of new skills. I mean, I've gotten back into sewing. I'm teaching myself how to knit. You know, I'm learning how to design notebooks. I'm working on font design. Like, there's a lot of really cool stuff that happened in 2019. So I am overall very pleased with everything. Even if I didn't finish 100% of the goals that I wanted to do, I honestly had a lot that I was trying to accomplish. So I'm, you know, that just means I have other stuff that I can work on for 2020. So that is my reflection on 2019. I will be back tomorrow with my top 5 goals for 2020 because you know I love my top 5 goals. Like I'm gonna keep that. So if you guys have any comments or questions, let me know down below. If it's something that is going to come up in another video this week, then you might just have to wait a couple days for that. But I will see you guys in my next video. Bye. Hey guys, so if you've made it all the way to the end of this video and are actually watching my end screen and you're not subscribed to my channel, I would really appreciate it if you would. There's a little button right there for you to do it. And if you're interested in watching some more of my videos, I have links to 2 of my older videos off to the left there, so you can check those out if you would like to, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!